Welcome back to New Rockstars, I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of everything that you might have missed in the new Morbius trailer, which packs in non-stop Marvel Easter eggs on every visible surface. Really the best hype man for a vampire trying to get into an MCU party. I don't know if I should let him in, it looks like he wants to suck my blood. Yeah, sure, but he's friends with multiple Spider-Mans, Spider-Man villains, Spider-Man newspapers, Spider-Man skyscrapers, and he gets a tan beefy bod out of nowhere like Spider-Man did. So you gotta let him in! Okay, whatever, I'm sure I won't regret this. Enough bits, there is so much to break down, not just the big Marvel Easter eggs, but some more subtle details that could clue you into this studio's bigger plan for how all of these titles may be connected to the MCU in Spider-Man No Way Home, so let's get started.
You need a doctor?
I am a doctor.
The trailer opens with a helicopter lifting Morbius and some equipment into a remote jungle island. That chopper's numbered N9747P, which is actually a common stock registration number seen on aircraft in a lot of movies. Cars 2, Casino Royale. It's really the Bart the Bear of movie aircraft numbers. Every movie with a bear in the 80s and 90s, that was Bart. Anyway, this pilot kindly asks if he needs a doctor, but Dr. Michael Morbius is like, F you dude, I am a doctor. Okay, jeez. This paints Morbius as a determined but abrasive intellect, a physician in spite of himself, unable to find a better doctor to fix his ailment. Yes, a doctor in the vein of Doctor Strange, maybe soon literally in his veins. Moving on.
I should have died years ago.
People all over the world have my disease.
I'm here
To find a cure.
So in the comics, Dr. Michael Morbius has a rare blood disorder that he tries to correct with vampire bat serum and electrotherapy that turns him into a living vampire, who isn't technically the immortally undead variety since his powers came from science, not the bite of a vampire. He was introduced as a Spider-Man villain, who also ends up tying in with Blade. But here we flash back to Morbius as a younger man in a ward with other children with medical conditions. Actually, the first trailer showed this same room with Michael and only one other kid, a blonde boy, who I think is gonna end up growing up to be Matt Smith's character, Luxius Crown, who will have a similar condition, curing it in a similar way, giving him vampiric powers, making him a parallel figure villain of this story. You and I are more alike than it seems. Actually, in that other shot, the ward was completely empty aside from those two as Michael set up a game of chess, probably metaphorically setting up the mental game of chess between the hero and villain, but also suggesting that all these other kids might have died off. Or maybe they're just playing outside. Yeah, can that be it, please? Now, in the comics, Crown becomes the villain Hunger with his own vampiric powers, but this is not to be confused with Hunger, the Devourer of Realities. That's the universal scale parasitic force from the Jim Starlin Thanos comics. It's a completely different thing. Lots of things can be hungry, folks, like Matt Smith isn't playing a marble-eating hippo. Adult Michael is cared for by Martine Bancroft, and we see his more vulnerable, gentler side, a doctor trying to cure not only himself, but others all over the world, including sweet little Anna here, who draws pictures of a sun over the ocean with a second sun behind it making a silly emoji face. She's the best! And more importantly, she knows there are multiple realities with multiple sillier worlds colliding with each other, so save her, Dr. Morbius. We need her. Moving on.
We have to push the boundaries, take the risks.
If you're gonna run,
Do it now.
Morbius slices his hand as he stands inside this cage with harp-like wires that, in the overhead shot of the swarm, you can see glowing blue, meaning it's emitting a special frequency that attracts these bats. It's not the blood that's drawing them in, it's the frequency. This actually might remind you of Hooper trying to attract the shark in Jaws by putting himself in a cage in the water. You go in the cage goes in front of the cave, bats in the cave. Farewell and adieu to ye fair Dr. Michael. Moving on.
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months. Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
Now the music in this trailer is The Doors' People Are Strange, a song that also features prominently in the vampire film The Lost Boys. Jim Morrison's words evoke the loneliness Dr. Morbius now feels as a living vampire, but we also cannot help but draw a connection between the strange folks currently tampering with reality in a way that might have caused these multiversal incursions. Tyrese Gibson's playing Simon Stroud, here an FBI agent investigating Morbius, but in the comics, a vampire hunter who tries to hunt him down. This container ship incident may be based on Morbius's origin in the Amazing Spider-Man 101 when he slaughtered everyone aboard a ship and, horrified by his actions, actually tried to commit suicide, but it didn't work. And you gotta love that classic horror imagery here, some blood dripping on the hand from the monster above. This is the kind of thing we've seen in Silence of the Lambs, Jurassic World. This also reminds me a lot of Aliens, but this may remind you of the blood dripping from Peter Parker's arm in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man and nearly fell on Norman Osborn, but instead made the loudest splat ever. Next clip.
What did you do to yourself, Doctor?
I wish I knew. I went from dying to being more alive than ever.
So in the New York skyline is the Horizon building. Horizon Labs is from the Spider-Man comics. This is a facility where Peter Parker tinkers on his Iron Spider armor, later leading to the Alchemax Corporation, which is how we get Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. But also in the comics, Peter Parker takes Dr. Morbius here. This could be a place where maybe the two people meet. But they do include the Rising Sun logo here, which could be connected to those rising suns of Anna's drawings. I'm obsessed with these. Could she be a Horizon test subject suffering from an experiment gone awry? It's all connected! Now here, the Horizon building is not far from another building that is under construction, which we know from the other nighttime skyline shot. There's the under construction tower right beside the Oscorp building. Now we last saw Oscorp Tower in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 in 2014, the Andrew Garfield Mark Webb series, and it has the same exact Oscorp logo, that broken R and the incomplete P that actually kind of makes it look like a question mark, evoking the mysterious nature of this company. But of course, that tower had a different structure and had the word Oscorp running up the side of it, not at the top like this. So in a way, this is both a nod to the Andrew Garfield universe, but also in a completely different form. I don't know, maybe Oscorp is expanding by acquiring various shell ventures, lots of the city skyline, just to give corporate backing for all kinds of Spidey adjacent villains that Sony plans to roll out, like Black Cat and Rhino and Kraven the Hunter. Actually, we know from a set photo from this movie that there's gonna be a Kraven catering truck somewhere in there. So it seems like Sony is suggesting Morbius could be taking place in a kind of merged, shared universe, perhaps on the other side of Doctor Strange's spell in Spider-Man No Way Home. But my issue is, Morbius was originally intended to come out like a year before No Way Home was going to. At least certainly before Venom's reality warp teleportation in the Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene. Really, I think the easiest way to interpret this cause and effect logic is that the multiverse has already been merged in various chaotic ways that we just haven't noticed before Doctor Strange's spell in No Way Home. That wasn't what broke it. Lots of things have been causing these incursions, and that was just the final straw that broke the camel's back. Because we did learn in Loki that, according to Kang, time is a flat circle. What we understood to be cause and effect really just needs to be thrown out the window. Essentially, the multiverse is destined to scramble, and therefore will have always been scrambled, as it is now. In physics, this concept is called Pascal's omelet. Let's move on.
It worked.
Not exactly. I have increased strength and speed, and some form of bat radar. What else can I do?
So Morbius releases sonar bursts like a bat does, and I like how from its perspective it causes the surfaces to swirl with this fluid, smoky texture, transforming walls and floors from hard surfaces that would hurt his fragile body if he were smack into them, to now a more amorphous environment that he can just kind of float through. On Morbius's chalkboard are some letters referring to the base pairs in a DNA protein strain, but actually to the left is written PKB37, PKB49, etc., etc. These are actually all weights of silver. Silver is of course a weakness to werewolves, and in a lot of vampire fiction to vampires as well. Perhaps Morbius was testing what weights of silver have the strongest effect on him now. And then on his desk in front of him is an open textbook on bats and an empty blood bag. Michael Morbius, did you just sip blood out of that boba tea straw tube? And then he lifts a massive stone tomb, you know, these things that medical doctors leave lying around their offices. And then he booms his echolocation across across the city. And you can see it's honing in on this green and red skylight window. It's hard to tell what building this is, but it does give off some kind of red glow on the left side as the burst passes it, making me think this could be the Horizon building that has a similar red glow. But there's also a tall construction crane to the upper left, so this might be near that under construction tower beside Oscorp. Really, I just think Morbius's final battle will go down with Luxie's crown and his allies at Oscorp and or Horizon, maybe to retrieve a serum that can help patients like Anna. Next clip. Okay, here Morbius, wearing his orange prisoner jumpsuit, so I'm guessing this is part of his escape from police custody, uses his powers in a subway tunnel. You can see the sonic energy flowing past him as he's in a wind tunnel. His earlobes wrinkle over like those of a bat, I suppose, which looks like they're reacting to the sound. But it's worth noting that our earlobes aren't the part of our body or bat anatomy that absorbs the sound through the tissue. That is actually the inner ear, an auditory nerve. Mammal ears have these funnel and cone shapes to direct sound inward, but whatever. I guess the wrinkling makes him look more bat-like. And as he floats ahead of the subway train, you can see someone running after him on the platform. It looks like Al Madrigal's character, FBI agent Rodriguez, but it also does match the shot of Matt Smith later on in the trailer on this train platform. He might be in this location too. I'm wondering if this sequence might play out like the New York subway scene in the movie Ghost. Remember when Patrick Swayze finally learns to channel his undead powers? And I just mentioned Ghost because it is really the only film I can think of to successfully mix the tones of supernatural horror with comedy and action and romance and morality play, as this movie, Morbius the Living Vampire, is trying to do. It looks like, God, that scene in Ghost with Vincent Schiavelli as that tragic subway ghost, terrifying, his mental breakdown, just that's Mephisto doing a chef's kiss because the movies and TV shows haunt my dreams and ruin my sleep. Now, are you looking for a gift that keeps giving year-round? Give your friends and family a Scentbird subscription. Scentbird is a flexible fragrance subscription service that lets you shop from over 600 brands. Scentbird lets your recipient choose a new designer fragrance to try every month. They have perfumes and colognes and a lot of unisex options. So this month I received the Skylar Salt Air, the Arquiste Nanban, and the Mercedes-Benz Sign. This is what they look like. They come in these cool little tubes that you just twist and you lift out. This Mercedes-Benz scent is really nice. Ooh. Yeah, it's got this crisp, citrusy vibe that definitely makes you feel like you're riding in a fancy car. Excuse me, my lady's calling me. Easy, easy, easy. So again, yeah, it's got this cool dispenser system. You just twist, it's out, and you could spray it right away, or you can lift out to see what it is. It's just like the perfect amount you need to really try it out. And it's a really good amount of scent. It is 8 times the amount of a normal sample. So with each fragrance, whoever you get this for will get a 30-day supply so they can try out fragrances before committing to a full bottle. They offer 3, 6, and 12-month gift subscription options. Is a gift set more their speed? Well, check out Scentbird's perfume and cologne gift sets filled with fan favorites from Gucci, Dolce & Gabbana, and many more designers. Or treat yourself with our code. It's only $11 for your first month. So make sure to use code NR for 30% off your first month at Scentbird.com. It's just $11 for your first month, and now Scentbird is available in Canada. So go ahead and sign up. Moving on.
There are limits. There has to be.
There's something inside of me. It wants to hunt and consume blood.
Michael.
Here we see Morbius in a blood bank, resisting the urge to guzzle it all down. Now notice the audio of Morbius's line sounds a bit edited.
There's something inside of me. It wants to hunt and consume blood.
Yeah, someone chopped that together. Almost sounds like the words consume blood was spoken by another character, almost like Crown finishing Morbius's sentence for him, because he's also a vampire. Next clip.
And you control it.
I don't know.
Half the city wants to kill you.
We haven't had anything this good since that thing in San Francisco.
The great Jared Harris appears as Michael's mentor figure, perhaps the character Emil Nikos from the comics, who is part of Dr. Morbius's past as a kid from Greece. Then there's this crime scene from that subway station overseen by Agent Stroud and Rodriguez with these dead patrol officers. Yikes. I'm thinking Morbius could have fled into the subway when he escaped, but then Crown might have killed these cops to make it look like it was Morbius, and did this also to hide his own vampiric powers. But then the big detail, Morbius reads a Daily Bugle newspaper with the same print edition masthead from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and from Venom Let There Be Carnage. Headline, Dr. Michael Morbius apprehended for vampire murder. Underneath, in a shocking turn of events, world-renowned medical genius Dr. Michael Morbius has been arrested for murder. And then above it, 3 teaser headlines. Finding the truth within, told in his own words. Rhino on the loose, zoo hoax fools us all. And Black Cat, friend or foe. Now you can definitely read these as teases for the existence of Spider-Man villain Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, in this universe. Hardy was actually played by Felicity Jones in the 2014 film, and Sony has been planning a Black Cat spin-off movie for years. And then of course, Spider-Man villain Rhino, who was played by Paul Giamatti as a man in an armored suit in the 2014 film, though this headline reports it as a zoo hoax. I don't know what that is, so it might just be a wink for us. But I am sorry to do this, but as a nerd with a journalism degree, this newspaper is straight up goofy. Remember, the print version of the Bugle from the other movies was a tabloid with a splashier full photo cover with inlaid block text, of course a parody of the New York Post. This version has the classic serious journalism 6-column layout, more text-based like the New York Times, with a serif text headline above the photo. Yet, despite this more serious design, the wording is full of bad practices even J. Jonah Jameson wouldn't allow. Dr. Michael Morbius apprehended for vampire murder is grammatically nonsensical. Is it saying Morbius murdered a vampire? Or is himself a vampire who murdered someone? Or murdered someone in the way a vampire would? I mean, I'm sorry, but these are the details newspaper editors are obsessed with. J. Jonah Jameson would totally be like, way too many words, use 2 or 3, max. Like, you would never waste 6 columns of ink on a long, vague verb like apprehended, when actually, ethically, journalists are supposed to use verbs like arrested or charged for active investigations, and definitely not put the word murder in the headline, even when quoted by presumably police. You wouldn't report his name as Dr. Dr. Michael Morbius in the headline, and then in the lower graph, the full word Dr. Michael Morbius. I mean, really, a more appropriate headline would be something like Nobel-winning doctor arrested under charges of vampire-like killings, which is more clear and obviously more scandalous, right? Because he has won a Nobel. You would put that in the headline, and then you would print his name in the lead sentence of the article. I know, movies are filled with professional inaccuracies, sure, but every time the Daily Bugle has shown up in a Sony movie, they have been weirdly fixated on the whole media industry side of it. Like, Let There Be Carnage is all about toxic relationships between true crime reporters and their subjects. In the Raimi trilogy, J. Jonah Jameson absolutely pushes overly salacious headlines, but that is something that happens in the real world. The New York Post totally does that. But at the same time, he also lectures Peter Parker on libel. In fact, as a kid, that's where I first learned the difference between libel and slander. And then in the third movie, he totally fires Eddie Brock over plagiarism and goes to the length of printing a retraction. And then in Far From Home, that makes the Daily Bugle a direct parody of Alex Jones' InfoWars. I'm just saying that when it comes to whatever these movies want to say about journalism, they normally put a ton of thought into the way they depict the Daily Bugle. But here, I'm like, Christ, you couldn't even reduce the kerning between the V and the A? Anyway, I'm just saying, maybe this slop could have been an intentional rush job. Like the Bugle could have been forced to rush this front page out under pressure from corporate interests in order to ruin Dr. Michael Morbius's reputation as much as possible, as quickly as possible. And then this park where Morbius was meeting with Jared Harris's character is now swarmed by police, and here Stroud wears a kind of bionic enhancement on his arm, maybe something that assists with his vampire hunting, like retractable wooden stake claws, or I don't know, with that tubing, maybe something that could extract Morbius's blood. Then Agent Rodriguez references that thing in San Francisco, likely referring to the events of the first Venom film set in San Francisco. Remember that when the Life Foundation was exposed for human testing using alien goo. But I don't know, if this universe is connected to the MCU or even other Spider-Verses, would that crime really be the biggest event these FBI agents would be referencing over the past few years? I mean, depending on how deep in the MCU this movie's gonna try to be, we did have a freaking blip, and then arguably even bigger in San Francisco, you had Giant Man swimming around in the bay in Ant-Man the Wasp, you had buses flying all over the street in Shang-Chi, which we know from the social media in that movie was a viral event. But here Stroud finds an origami bat, I'm guessing a kind of calling card left behind by Morbius at the sites of his good deeds, but it looks like it was folded from a note containing his chemical equations from his lab, maybe a message for the agents that he wants them to find. Moving on.
Wants to control you.
Hey, Dr. Mike, you and I should stay in touch.
I'd do anything to save a life. But
I don't know what I'm capable of.
Morbius flees past graffiti of Spider-Man with murderer written on it. Now this Spider-Man was actually a throwback to the Tobey Maguire era suit from the PS4 game loading screen. Murderer, though, would imply the MCU Peter Parker, who in No Way Home is facing public scrutiny and accusations that he murdered Mysterio. But like this movie's references to Venom and to the Oscorp logo design, it's just more evidence suggesting that Morbius is taking place in some fusion of all of these realities. And that's especially true for the big cameo by Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes Vulture, still in his white jumpsuit from the Spider-Man Homecoming post-credit scene, which of course is in the MCU. So I guess this movie's implication is when Venom transported into the MCU in the Let There Be Carnage post-credit scene, he now exists in a reality where Venom has always existed as Tom Hardy Eddie Brock, something that people know. And that could be the Sony's way of explaining how it is that Alfred Molina Doc Ock just knows Tom Holland Peter and how Michael Keaton Vulture knows Dr. Mike here. Either way, I do like how the police lights flash red and blue on their faces, the color of the webhead hero that whips them together. Then Morbius is fired upon by guards, bullets that Morbius dodges Matrix style. This actually looks like it could be part of an extended Kingsman style long take that goes in and out of slow motion. Next clip.
You save lives, you don't take them. Are you here to heal the world? Or to destroy it?
Okay, Stroud appears to be talking Morbius down while he holds his neck, suggesting he was either just swiped there or maybe even bitten on his neck. Then there's this nurse who flees in fear down a corridor, and in one of the flashes of light, you can see a gray claw grabbing her neck. This could be Morbius, but it also could be the vampiric form of Crown. Moving on. Okay, a massive swarm of bats fills the space. At first, the camera is actually shown from the point of view of one of those bats, and then at the center of it all is Morbius's form. You can actually see a glimpse of purple behind him, probably part of his classic purple cape from the comics. And then we see Morbius's nasty boy roar. It looks like he's got some fresh blood on his teeth, telling us that he might have just taken a bite out of something or someone. Let's hope it was crime. And then we get the title, which like all the title text in this trailer has its inner life force lowered until it turns red, drained like blood from a vampire bite. And then on to the last clip.
Who the hell are you, man?
I am Venom. I'm just kidding. It's Dr. Michael Morbius at your service.
Okay, Morbius foils what looks like a counterfeiting operation. You can see large printers and $100 bill designs on the screens. Morbius is impersonating Venom here, so he must be aware of that lethal protector from the West Coast and how he delivers vigilante justice with that terrifying monster face wink. I guess is their equivalent of a... I can't pull that off. Now, in terms of world logic, it's just another curveball, right? I mean, I don't know. Has this Morbius met Venom? Or is Venom just like a famous vigilante in this world that people like to quote? Am I wasting my time questioning cinematic universe continuity when the studio thinks you can just reverse engineer this all with graffiti, a few jokes, a newspaper, and throwing money at Michael Keaton? I don't know. Like, folks, I think the Doors had it right. People are strange. Hey, you can support New Rockstars by checking out our merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars, and subscribe for breakdowns of everything you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.